Well, hey folks, and welcome to Solarcabin channel. I've got an interesting video for you today. One of the questions that I get asked a lot is, how do you make a living when you're off-grid? And a lot of people don't understand that off-grid for most people is probably not all that much different than on-grid. A lot of off-gridders actually work a regular job just like you do. They go out, do their 9-to-5 job, and come home. That's probably a large percentage of off-gridders. But off-gridding gives you some really unique opportunities. Like in my case, I built my own cabin, and I own my property, and I have no utility bills, so I don't need as much money as most people do. And I have a lot of free time and some abilities that I can use my property for to make an income. And so I'm going to talk about some things. It's a lot of different ways that you can make money as an off-gridder. And a lot of these businesses that I talked about, I've actually ran because I started from a very young age and figured out that having multiple streams of income, which I'll talk about quite a bit, multiple streams of income coming in from different sources, was a lot more secure than just having an income coming from one job. Because if that one job, for whatever reason, goes away, your income is gone. And that can cause a lot of stress and a lot of hardship for people, as we all know. So having multiple streams of income, if one of those income streams dries up, I still have other income streams that are coming in that can cover me and take care of all my needs. And my needs, because I said I'm off-grid with my own cabin and my own land and no utility bills, my needs are very few. So that's one of the reasons and one of the benefits for going off-grid. Now, not all off-gridders are in that situation. Some people decide they want a regular big house and a great big power system and run a big farm and stuff like that, and they have lots of expenses. They may even have more expenses than if they were on-grid. That's not the type of off-gridder that I generally deal with. It will be more people like me that went off-grid because they want to slow down and simplify their lives. They want to not be on that wheel, that rat wheel going round and round. They want to get out of the rat race. And so that's the type of off-gridder businesses that I'm going to be talking about here. So I've got a whole list of them, but I want to tell you that I wrote about this a lot in my book, and I don't know if any of you are aware that this is my book, Off the Grid. It is 355 pages of my off-grid experiences living off-grid for many years. I've been off-grid now for 20 years, and I put a lot of my experiences in here, including a section on businesses that you can run off-grid. And I'm going to include a lot more because when I wrote this, the internet was still fairly new. I wrote this clear back in 2007. Okay, internet was still, and YouTube wasn't even owned by Google then. It was owned by a separate company, and they sold it to Google. So that's how old some of the information may be in this book, but it's still very accurate and can help you a lot in everything from building your cabins to starting a business, drilling your water wells, installing your solar, everything like that is all in this book here. But I'm just going to focus today on just running businesses, okay? And some of the businesses, now, one thing to know is it's a good idea that you do things legally. In some states, you're going to be required to have a business license. In fact, in most states, it depends on the business. You'll need some type of business license. And I'll talk about business license a little bit more in depth here. And you'll probably have to file your taxes. As much as we all hate that, for small businesses, it's not that bad because if you don't have any a regular job, that income coming in, you can take off a lot of expenses. Now, I won't get into taxes and how to do that. Talk to the tax people, go online, but there's a whole lot of expenses that you can deduct from your taxes so that your income comes out pretty nice. You don't have to pay quite as much in taxes, and some states are better than that than others. But what I'm saying is you probably need some type of business license. I recommend trying to get a general business license for a lot of these. That way you can do several different businesses on the side using the same license instead of having to have a single license for each different business. You can talk about that with your county, see exactly what they allow. I've got a business license in my town for, it was $50 a year. That's all I had to pay was $50 a year, and that's when I was running a pest control business, and that's one of the businesses that I'll talk about here. Now, going down my list here, because I made a list with a lot of different businesses. One thing is, if you have your own land, you have opportunities there for selling stuff that you make or grow or raise on your own land. So we're going to talk about that. One of the is selling produce or selling meat and eggs. Now, states are different in what they require for anyone who is selling, especially live animals or meat or any edible. So you want to make sure that you understand what the laws are in your state before you start selling that. However, in most rural areas that I've found, you can sell things like live animals, or you can sell eggs, or you can sell stuff from your garden, sometimes even without a license. And you can even sell it to stores and to restaurants if they want it. And I know several people that supply a certain niche of vegetables, like tomatoes are always in demand because, let's face it, the greenhouse tomatoes suck. They taste terrible. So getting a fresh tomato that's been raised well on a homestead is very valuable. And so are fruits and things like that. Raising fruit trees, having an orchard, raising a big garden, selling off the excess to businesses or selling it yourself. Really good income in that. Again, you want to make sure that you're doing it legally and that you have whatever permits are required from your state. And some states are really tough on selling anything like that. California is probably the worst for requirements for selling anything from your property. Other states are a lot more lenient. In my state here, I know several people that sell eggs, and they have a regular farmer's market in town. You may find one of these in your town where you can go and set up a stand and sell your produce through the farmer's market. Or a lot of guys just put it in the back of their pickup truck, pull into a gas station, get permission from the manager to park out there, and sell it out of the back of their pickup truck. I know a lot of people that do that. Good business. You need to be aware, though, that it takes skill to provide good products like that. You're going to need to know gardening. You're going to need to know how to take care of chickens and raise them. And you're going to need to know how to take care of a garden and fruit trees, and how to properly take care of the crops and whatever you're going to be selling if you're going to be running that type of business. But it's a great business to get into. And, chickens are probably some of the easiest animals to raise. So raising chickens, raising goats, raising rabbits would be where I would tell people to start. If they don't take as much care, they don't take as much feed, you can benefit from them yourself and for your family while selling the excess, and they produce fast. Chickens, rabbits, goats all produce really fast, so you've always got some to sell while you keep some for yourself. So that's one thing to consider. You can learn a whole lot more about raising animals online if you don't have any experience with that sort of stuff. Recommend you get experience and talk to the people that have experience before you do it. Now, the other one. Now, I talk about selling livestock and selling pets. I want to caution you here. Selling livestock is unless you're just doing it small time. Most places have an auction, especially in the rural areas. We have an auction place here where you can go down on the weekends and take your lambs, your goats, your cattle, your horses, whatever, and you can sell them through the auction. And it doesn't even require a business license or anything like that to do that. A lot of rural areas that have people that raise animals have some type of auction set up. Make sure you're aware of the rules and what you need to do. Now, selling other types of animals, pets, we will say. I know people do breed dogs, and some people breed cats, or other unique animals to sell. I'm concerned about pet mills, and you all know what that is. This is people that just breed a dog over and over and over, terribly harming the animal, taking advantage of its natural cycle, and just pumping out pets after pets. I am against that. I don't think it's right. You shouldn't be doing that sort of stuff. Now, it's different if you have a specialty breed and you're very, very conscientious of the animal, so you're not breeding it every year, maybe every other 2 years, and you sell the pups and or something like that. That's different. You're basically raising them like you would livestock. You're conscientious of them, and you're not just using them. And I know people that some of these like French bulldogs. I know a lady down here who raises sells French bulldog pups for $5,000 a pup. Okay, she only breeds it every other year. She's really conscientious about it. She only breeds the dam every other year, and she gets on average 4 or 5 pups and sells them for $5,000 a pup, and they sell. Okay, so I know the people that do that, and that's how she makes a living. I don't fault her for that because it's very conscientious. I just don't like puppy mills, that sort of thing. Selling plants and trees. Now this has become really popular because a lot of people want to landscape and their own yards, and they're looking for full-grown or well-grown, not full-grown, but well-grown plants that they can use for their own landscaping. And you can also sell them in certain markets to the greenhouses that don't grow their own plants. And certain trees like the cherry trees, the flowering cherry trees, Japanese flowering cherry trees, those are all real popular. There's a lot of different, you can go online and find out what trees and plants, shrubs are really popular in your area. And then basically all you need for that business is some big tubs, which you can get, and grow them in those. And then in season, when it's time for landscaping, you just advertise those. You can sell them yourself, or you could sell them to a greenhouse that sells trees and stuff like that. And decent money, and you basically have to do nothing except put the bare root stock in, and you usually can use trimmings from your own trees to restart them. So every year you just restart them, let them get to a certain height, and then you sell them off. And some of those trees are really expensive. If you've been to a greenhouse lately, you go look at a 6 foot or 8 foot tree, you're talking $50 for a tree. Okay, so if you've got 100 of them growing on your property, and you don't need a lot of property for that either. You can grow 100 trees in a small amount of property up to 3 or 4 feet, sell them for 25, 30, $50 depending on the type of tree or the type of shrub or whatever it is, and you're making good money. So that's a side stream of income. Selling hay and other crops. Now, if you've got quite a bit of a homestead, my homestead here is only an acre. So I'm not going to raise a lot of big crops. I could raise a big garden, but I'm not going to raise hay. I'm not going to grow hay on my property or a large field of corn or stuff like that. But some of you may have enough property on your off-grid homesteads to do that. So hay is a very good cash crop. And a lot of people here raise hay and they sell it to other states even. They'll transport it and sell it to other states because hay was going for like $100 a bale just a couple of years ago. That's really expensive, And so people that raise other animals, especially horses and cows that need hay, they'll pay big money to get hay to keep their animals alive. I don't like that they take advantage of the market that way, but a lot of people do. But raising hay, generally, if there's a market, you want to check that there's a market for it in your area, and then you can sell generally to pretty much anywhere locally. And it helps if you have the equipment. Of course, you're going to need a hay baler, and and you're going to need a tractor, and you're going to need to know how to irrigate and those sorts of things. So that's more of a skilled job, but a lot of people do it, and that's all they do is just raise hay for other people's animals. On to the next. Other crops that you can grow in smaller areas that you may want to consider: sunflowers, sunflowers that produce sunflower seeds, the big ones. Those always sell really well, and any type of, like I said, landscaping plants. And certain types of shrubs that produce flowers that are very fragrant. I can't think, lilacs, or not lilacs, I can't think what the name of the one is now, that is always really a popular one for perfumes and stuff like that. You can look it up online. They raise those as crops, and you don't have to have a lot of space to grow those kind of crops. You can grow them as a minimal supply and then sell them to local places that are looking for those types of crops. And, of course, anything that you can produce that a business needs, they would rather get it locally. It costs them a whole lot less to get it locally. So you want to find a niche find some of these businesses and where they're getting their products, and then see if you can offer them a good deal for you raising some of that product for them. A lot of them will work with you that way. Some other things you can do. Now, these businesses, these are the ones that I've done quite a bit. Being a handyman, an equipment operator, septic service, snow removal, chimney sweep, pest control, and doing mechanic work. Okay, when I was in college, I was married, had a little young family, and I needed extra income because I wasn't able to work a 9-to-5 job. I was working for the university, teaching classes for the university, teaching community classes, on top of going to school full time, and so I couldn't run work a regular job. So what I would do on the weekends, I would go and hire myself out as a handyman for people that needed work done around their places, whether it was repairing or building fences or things like that. But one of the things that I started doing, because I had people ask me about it, was building sheds. And I would first I built a shed for myself to make my design so that it was a really nice design. And then I just put out little flyers on people's houses and in their mailboxes and stuff, advertising that I would build sheds for them. And in a weekend, about 8 hours work, I could build a complete shed. Materials back then cost me about $300, and I would charge $800 for a shed, so I was making $500 profit from building the sheds in about 8 hours worth of work. And it only took me, a few hours on one of my weekend days, and I do that maybe once a month, and I'd build maybe 10, 12 sheds a year, and that was good money, $6,000, $7,000 a year back then. Nowadays, it's a little bit more competitive because Lowe's and Home Depot, those businesses didn't even exist back then. Ernst was the only business that was doing it, and they didn't sell sheds. Now you've got Lowe's and Home Depot that sells sheds, so it's a little bit more competitive. But if you do custom sheds and you'll go right to the person's place to build it the way they want it, you could still sell sheds all day long. Okay, people need sheds, and they generally don't require any type of contractor permit or anything like that for a shed that's under like 100 square feet. You can build them for other people and run a business and make good money running sheds. Now, some of these others that I've also done. Let's see. Handyman, I said, there's a lot of work for handyman. If you've got the skills, if you've done painting before, especially house painting, business painting, you can usually get plenty of work repainting houses. And, all you got to do is basically put out some flyers and let people know, hey, I'll do painting on your houses, and then bid them appropriately. You should make good money at it, but at the same time, don't try and take advantage of people. Make sure that it's a good quality job that you're doing. Equipment operators. Now, there's a lot of people out there who have ran special equipment, whether it be a tractor, a plow, or other types of equipment that people are maybe not familiar with, or they don't have the equipment themselves, which is expensive to rent or to buy, and you have the equipment. If that equipment's just sitting in your yard, it's losing money. You should be putting that to work. Tillers, okay? People need their gardens tilled up every year. Maybe they don't own a tiller. You can rent out your service to till up their gardens every year. I know a guy who did that with his tractor tiller, which was a big tiller, and he would just let people know, hey, I'm tilling up garden space. Let me know if you're interested. And he would probably do 100 jobs in the springtime, charging $100 a job to go and till up a large garden space when everybody was growing large gardens. Backhoe services, snow plows. That's a really good business. If you live in an area that gets high snow, people get locked into their properties if they can't get their driveways cleared of snow. Businesses need snow plowing, and so if you put a snow plow on a 4-wheel drive pickup, you've got a money maker right there. You can probably stay busy all winter if you get high snow. And in this area here, there's already several people that do snow plowing in this area. But if you get into it, and once you get established that you'll do it good and do it at a quality price, then you're going to make good money. The other one, septic service. Now, this one requires a little bit more outgoing expense to get started, but those trucks that are used for sumping out septic tanks, if you can get one, you can make a lot of money doing that, because some people need their septic tanks sumped out every year. Businesses, where I work in the oil patch, they use those porta potty toilets. And instead of moving them when they're full, they just hire the septic service to come sump out the porta potties. And they also sell, a lot of septic services around here sell the porta potties to the oil field as well, or they go and set them up wherever they're working on a job site, and also offer the service of sumping them out. And then they still maintain control and own the porta potties. So when the business folds and moves somewhere else, they keep the porta potties and just move them wherever they're going to go. Septic service, it's a stinky job, but it makes you a lot of money. All right. I talked about snow removal. Chimney sweep. Here's one that I would just caution you on. Make sure you have a lot of experience before you get into this, because if you set somebody's house on fire doing a chimney job, you're going to be paying big money for it. And you may want to consider insurance on a lot of these jobs that require equipment and work and stuff like that. My brother did chimney sweeping for a lot of years. That was his side job. And he was really good at it, but he did have a fire cause damage to a house, and it almost put him out of business and cost him a lot of money, just because he took the ashes out that he thought were dead and put them in a trash can, and they weren't dead enough, and then the lady went and put stuff on top of them. It caught on fire and then set the side of her house on fire, and of course he got blamed for it, for not making sure that those are out. If you're going to do chimney sweeping, go online, make sure you research it, understand the safety that required for it, but it is good money. Not as much as it call for it now as there was before, because less states are now allowing people to burn wood stoves. But if your state allows people to burn wood stoves, they probably would appreciate having a chimney sweep in their area. Pest control. This is one that I did when I first went off grid. Now, I already had some experience because I had worked for a pest control company part-time, and so I got experience that way. But then when I moved to my area, my off-grid, there was only one company that was doing it, and they didn't have a very good reputation. And I'm like, well, heck, I've got that experience. So I got my pest control. Every state's different. You will need a pest control license, which is separate from your business license generally. And in some states, you have to have experience working with a pest control company, but not all states. And I would go out and spray houses and sheds, wood piles, things like that for insects, using appropriate chemicals, and taking care of their yards for weeds and things like that. And it was really good money. Back then, I retired about 7 years ago now, but back when I was doing it, on an average day, I'd make over $1,000 doing pest control. It was really good money. But it is hard work. It can be hard work, and you're working with pesticides, and no matter what, you're going to get some pesticides on you. And that's one of the reasons that I retired from that, is because the health reasons, and because of my knee and my back were starting to go out on me, I just couldn't do that work anymore. Otherwise, I'd still be doing it because it's dang good money. But it's one of those jobs where you need more skill and more training, and you have to get a special license for. Mechanic, and there's a lot of shade tree mechanics out there. If you're really good and you've worked either as a mechanic or cars inside and out, there's always a demand for people that go and fix people's cars, usually on their own property. You take your tools, you have a truck set up with your own tools, generator and lifts, jacks and things like that, so you can get in it. If you can go to somebody's place and do a mobile repair, even if it's just changing people's tires, that sort of thing. There's a big demand for it because people just don't have time, and they don't want to leave their car at a mechanic's because they know it's going to be sitting there for weeks before they get it back, and they need that vehicle right away. They're willing to pay more to you to come and do it on their property for basic repairs, especially things like putting in a fuel pump, replacing a battery, changing tires, things that they just don't want to do for themselves, that you can do for them. So and if you can do, basic small engine repair, there's also a good business for you right there, because everybody's got lawnmowers and snow blowers and, small tractors and things like that. So there's a lot of money to be made if you're a mechanic. All right, on to the next ones. Okay, folks, we're about halfway through the list. Still a lot more businesses I can talk to you about here. Salvage. Now, this is a business that my one of my other brothers, got into and has made a good side income from it, in which he goes and salvages old auto parts that are valuable, and wiring, copper wiring and things like that, or aluminum and other salvageable metals, or other materials that are of high value. He goes and he has a winch on his truck, and he pulls them out of people just throw them into ditches and stuff there where he lives, I guess. And he goes and yanks them up out of there and puts them in the back of his truck and then resells them usually to the salvage yard that takes materials and stuff like that. Now, there is another type of salvage, and I know an off-gridder that's doing this, and he makes good money at it. He gets old vehicles, usually ones that are very popular, but are hard to find parts for sometimes. And what he does is he salvages out the parts. He just takes the parts out, whether it's a carburetor or, you know, headlights, things like that that may be hard to find that people want to replace. But the prices for a new one might be more than what they want to spend. And he uses his eBay account. And I've used eBay to sell stuff too. It's easy to get on. And anybody can do it. And you sell through it. Get you a PayPal account and you can collect payment through there. And he just advertises those on his eBay account and makes good money at salvaging. He'll take whatever salvaging parts on. A lot of times he just leaves them on the car and advertises them on eBay. He doesn't even do any work ahead of time. He advertises them on eBay that he's got these parts for this certain model, make, and year of car. And then when he gets an order for it, he just goes out and takes it off, which only takes him, you know, 10, 15 minutes usually, and then sends it off to him through eBay. So he doesn't even have to do any work until he actually sells whatever salvage he's getting off of there. And so you may look into doing salvage on vehicles. You may also look at salvage of doors and windows, things like that sell really well. Salvage parts, if they're in good shape. You can usually sell sinks, bathroom equipment, like your sink bases and things like that, cabinets, those sorts of things. If you can salvage them from houses that are either being demolished, a lot of times people are remodeling, and that's another business you could get into is doing remodeling for people. And if you take those old cabinets and bases and those sinks and things like that out, then you've got another product to sell. Now, you can do that in trade and barter. You can do some remodeling and barter for taking all the old stuff out and reselling it. I did a lot of barter when I was doing pest control for things. I would go around people's house. If I seen something that they weren't using, like I got a water tank out here and I've got doors and windows from people that I needed when I was building my cabin, I would trade them pest control in exchange for those products. And barter is, in my mind, a much better system because it's an even trade and there's no money involved, so there's no taxes to report and no one else looking over your shoulder about your money. Okay, just something to consider. Antiques. I know several antique dealers. If you got the time, which you know most off-gridders do, you can go around and find old businesses that are going out of business, old houses and things like that, where they may still have some antiques available. Antiquing has gotten a lot harder because there's a lot of people doing it. Since Roadshow came on, everybody got into antiquing and thinks everything that they pick up now is worth $1 million. Most of it isn't, but there's still good money in antiquing. If you go to yard sales and you know what you're looking for, you have a good eye, then you know the value of something. And they can be anything from trading cards to old bicycles, a lot of people are looking for old tools right now are very popular, so you might want to keep an eye on that. So antiquing is a decent business you can get into. Yard cleanup. And this is one, especially if you live in an area with a lot of older people. A lot of times they need someone to help them around their yard. And that may be getting their garden space ready. It may just be cleaning up their yard in the spring or in the fall. You know, doing some small basic repairs, that sort of stuff. Yard cleanup is really good business to be into. And with yard cleanup, you would also maybe want to consider a lawn mowing service. And there's always a demand for lawn mowing service, especially in communities that have, like I said, a lot of older people or a lot of people that have money but don't want to spend the time to do their own yard work. And so they will hire somebody to come and do that. And it's actually pretty decent money. Some of the yard crews I know around here, they charge on average $25 to $30 an hour to go mow lawns and run a weed eater around and trim out the weeds. And that's basically all they'll do. If you do other services along with that, that's more income that you can do. And if you also build sheds, you can also, while you're there doing their yard work, can say, hey, how would you like a shed? And you know, there's other ways, other income streams that you can also pull in from that sort of work. Let's see, yard landscaping. If you have done this type of work, this is one that requires more skill because you don't want to just advertise yourself as a landscaper if you haven't done that type of work. But I know of one business in here in town. It's basically a homesteader business, and he just has a trailer on the back of his truck that he hauls his equipment around in, and he's got one of those little skid tractors, and he does landscaping, pushes them around. He has access, because they run a greenhouse, he has access to trees and shrubs, and that's one thing you're going to have, because if you're paying full price for those to go put them on someone else's yard, you're not going to make a lot of money. So you need access, and this is where it can also get into, if you're growing these on your own property, you can grow the plants and trees that you're going to landscape with, okay? Another side income is if you can go and do that. And especially people are looking for rocks right now, especially big rocks. There's big money in big rocks. People like them in their yard because they're decorative. And so if you can go and get big rocks, and you have a way to do that, you're probably either going to need a forklift or a backhoe or something or a skid to pick those things up, because it's a big rock. So, but there's big money in getting landscaping rocks. Now you want to do this legally, because some places won't allow you to just go out anywhere and collect rocks. So you better be sure that you know that it's legal for you to go and collect these rocks. But there's good money in it. And let's see what else there. Weed. Weed and lawns. Lawn planting can be a good business. Again, it's a more skilled. You better know what you're doing, and you better have the equipment to do it. And, taking care of weeds, that kind of gets in with pest control generally. A lot of times if you're working with any type of, if it's just fertilizer, it's usually not a problem. If you're just doing a weed and feed system, using the chemicals that are widely available, you might not need a license. But in most cases, if you're using any type of chemical and putting it on anybody's houses, you're going to need a license in order to do that. But it is good money. We talked about shed building. Wood cutting. Now we're getting into some things that I see a lot of off-gridders do. Wood cutting, splitting, and hauling. And in areas where people still burn wood stoves, resort areas and that, like we have around here, or in a lot of rural areas where people don't haul their own wood and don't have a wood lot on their property, you can still make good money wood hauling. It's gotten harder because there's a lot of people doing it now. But if you're into it and you can get a people get your word out there of your business, you can usually do pretty well doing wood hauling. And, it depends on where you are as to how much you can charge. And I know some places, some guys here, during the wintertime, they take it up to the resort areas where there's a lot of cabins and that, and people always seem to wait forever, and so the price doubles in wintertime if you want a load of wood. But they'll be glad to take it up there for you. Tree trimming. Again, this is one that probably requires some special equipment. If you've done this type of work before, if you have the equipment, the cables and the safety equipment, a cherry picker, which is one of those boom trucks that goes up so you can get in with the trees and get in with your chainsaw to trim them down. You want to do some study on that, because arboration is a tricky thing. You can kill a tree if you trim too much. You can also make it look like shit. So make sure you know what you're doing. But tree trimming around here, I know is very popular. People need to have their trees trimmed all the time, and I'm sure those guys make good money. And you probably may need to invest in a wood chipper, or have some place you're going to haul those off to, or, haul them to the landfill or something like that. But you'll need to make arrangements for how to haul off those limbs and stuff after you do them or chip them up. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, now we're getting into more of the artsy stuff, which I like. And a lot of off-gridders have talents. And when we're talking about art, it could be painting, drawings, sculpture, wood sculpture, welding together lawn art, things like that. And there's quite a few. I know a couple of guys that do wood sculpture. One guy just does absolutely fantastic wood sculpture, and he does owls and Indian heads and just all kinds of stuff. And I don't know how much he sells locally. I think he sells a lot online, though, to people that want that sort of stuff. And, that's where the online internet is great for businesses, because if you got eBay or you've got Amazon or, some of these other places that allow private people to sell directly to other customers, you can make a lot of money working from your home doing your art and then selling it online. Set up your own website too. I have my own website for where I sell my book and, and my ebooks. And you can get this in book or ebook form, by the way. Here's my shameless plug. Go look at my ebooks and books on simplesolarhomesteading.com. And, I sell my plans through ebooks and stuff like that. So if you got internet, you basically got a storefront without having to expend a lot of money on setting up a business in town. You don't have to buy it, and you don't have employees and all those other expenses. You just sell online to people that want your stuff. So online businesses also work into these other businesses as a way to advertise and also to sell your products to a much larger market. You can even sell them worldwide if you want, okay? I have customers from Japan and Australia and Canada and pretty much everywhere in the world, as at least a few times, bought books and ebooks and plans from my website. So, what else we get here? I talked about welding. If you're a welder and you have the skills for that, there's always demand for welders. Either you can hire yourself out as a day contractor where you just go and do a welding job for a business or something like that. But a lot of welders get into doing like decorative fences, the pipe fences. A lot of rural areas want pipe fences because they look really nice and they last basically forever. They'll last longer than wood in most cases. And so they weld up fences, or they weld equipment when a tractor the frame breaks or something like that, or a truck needs welding on it. They'll go and do that sort of welding work. And they just hire themselves out for each job and bid each job as they want to do it. Wood fencing and pipe fencing, I talked about. Wood fencing you can also get into. If you've got your own small lumber mill, it makes it a lot better if you're doing wood fencing. Then you're not buying wood at the standard prices and having to go install it. That cuts into your profit. If you have a small wood mill and you can go up and mill your own fancy posts with knurls on the top, you know what I'm talking about, for fences. A lot of people find those very valuable, especially if it's cedar fencing. Okay, and lawn art, which is always popular, and this goes again with landscaping, but lawn art is more specific. This is building things like those wishing wells and wind towers and welded metal sculpture, those things that turn in the wind, twirly-whirly things. A lot of people like those sorts of things, and if you're artistic that way and and you're creative and come up with, create your own style, find your own niche, there's good money in that, especially if you've got an area. Now, even though my area is fairly moderate income to lower income people here, we have resorts that are around that are full of wealthy people that won't do that stuff for themselves. So that's where you take that stuff and you sell it. And then you come back to your little off-grid homestead and just pocket the money to live on. So, okay, on to the next. Okay, now these next businesses are ones that I do now all the time. Writing books and ebooks, making videos, travel logs. Now, I told you that I ran a pest control company when I first started up here. It was a one-man pest control company. I made really good money, and it was a great business to run. But like I said, my knee and my back started going out on me, and I was worried about working with pest control chemicals all that time and what effects that might be having on my health. So I decided it was maybe time for me to get out of that business. And I had already started writing books, my book, and also making videos for YouTube. Now, that was a long time ago. Back in 2007, before Google even owned YouTube, I started making off-grid videos, okay? And telling people about my cabin, which you can see on the cover there. That's my cabin. And I was telling people how to build their cabins and how to set up small off-grid systems, which, if you've been on my channel, you probably watched a lot of those videos. And it became, at the time I was doing it, it wasn't about money, and it really has never been about money for me doing that, because I love teaching people and I love sharing that information, because I think it's very valuable information for people that maybe are just learning and want to get out of the rat race, and I want to make sure they get off on a good path, like I'm doing in this video here. But it did actually become a really decent business, because after I wrote the book, this book actually started out as just a 78-page book. It was just a small book talking about my cabin building, the things I was doing on my homestead. That's what I started out with. And I got on Facebook and got in some chat rooms and started like that, talking with people who were interested in that lifestyle. And I shared that, hey, I've got this book available out there, and it took off like wildfire. It really did. Back then, there wasn't very much information. Nowadays, you can't throw a rock on YouTube without hitting someone claiming to be an off-gridder, or, a lot of them are. Now, a lot of them were actually people that watched my videos went and built their cabins and started their homesteads and now have their own YouTube channels. That's just fine, folks. I know who you are. But, you know, at that time when I was doing it, there wasn't anybody really doing that sort of stuff. And so I found a niche. And that's important when you're doing a business, is that you find a niche to fill and then you fill it. And so I started writing books about off-grid living, and I got into, and that, back then, there wasn't even really a market for ebooks. Now you all know what ebooks are. When you talked about ebooks to people, they didn't even really know what there was. And I was one of the first people in a group of people, I'm sure, that had the idea that, you know, it's so expensive to do a printed book. A printed book like this costs a lot of money, especially a big thick book like this. It costs a lot of money to publish. And if you don't have a publisher, I publish myself using lulu.com if you're looking to publish your books. But it costs a lot of money for a black and white. This is all in black and white because a color book would cost over $100 for a book like this. But I could do the black and white version and I could sell it. But I have to sell it for $24.95 in order to make even a little bit of money off it, because printed books are really expensive. So I started doing ebooks in PDF format. And back then there wasn't even anybody, like Amazon wasn't selling ebooks. There wasn't any businesses selling ebooks. And so I just started doing them off my website. Hey, if you want the PDF ebook, you can get it for $5. And it's full color, and I can put the links for the products and stuff in there, and, you know, it doesn't cost me hardly anything for overhead, so I make more money off of an ebook than I do off of a printed book. So ebooks are really popular. Now, if you're going to write on a subject, you got to know your subject and have experience. You know, don't claim experience that you don't have, and I know there's some people that do that out there. But if you've got the experience and you want to write about your experience, your skills, teach other people, I think that's excellent. I think it's what we really need to be doing, is sharing that, because it puts it in a format that will last long after you're gone, okay? At least I hope they do, that my stuff is still around here long after I'm gone for people that are still wanting to learn this, about this lifestyle. And so videos are also another way that I got into. Like I said, I started before Google even owned YouTube, started making just some few simple off-grid videos about my cabin. And some of you have probably watched, about 4 million of you have watched over a couple of my videos when I first got started that were on about my cabin, and has my song. And that was another way I found a way to work my talents in. Was to start writing songs, and I wrote the song I Am My Own Man, which some of you are probably familiar with, and I included that in a video, and so that got me started on songwriting. And so these were all different sources of income. Now, back when YouTube was not owned by Google, you actually could make a really good amount of money. There was months that I would make $2,000 easy just doing videos. Now it's a lot harder. They've made it a lot harder for people that are trying to get into YouTube. You have to have, I think, 10,000 views a month now in order to even start making income. And so if you haven't been around a long time, making a lot of videos and have a lot of subscribers, don't count on making much money on YouTube when you get started. It's going to take you a while to get built up. It's not like it was back in the day when I got started. It's a lot harder now. But you can still make some money making videos. And you can make money putting your work into ebooks and printed books. And again, if you're looking for a source for selling printed books, I would look at lulu.com. That's who I work with. They're fairly reasonable, and you can publish your own books and then either order them yourself and then sell them to people locally, or you can sell them through their marketing system, or you can sell them on Amazon or through other sources. You know, if you do farmers markets and stuff like that and you got a book, just set your book out there on the counter too and see if you sell. I used to just take them to the grocery store and say, hey, can you take 5 or 6 of these books? And then I'll come in and we'll split the money. You know, I would give them like 25% and I would take the rest for selling printed books. It's another way to do it, okay? Videos, you're going to have good equipment in order to make videos these days. And dang, you know, these people that are making some of these videos, I don't know if they've got lots of money to spend, but they're like high quality actors doing these videos now for off-grid living and stuff like that. I don't think they actually live off-grid, some of them. I think some of it's a scam, but you know, they have a lot of followers and they get a lot of attention. Just be careful that they're actually living the lifestyle that they're promoting in their videos is what I would say. Let's see. Travel logs. Now, I haven't done travel logs, but I'm going to start doing some or something similar. Some people travel a lot. They have the money to do that apparently. And when they do, whenever they go to a new place, they do a travel log, take people along with them, which is good. I think it's interesting to go to places that you may never visit yourself. And watch these videos of these people and learn about the culture and get some education about different areas and different lifestyles and different people. I think those are excellent. I watch a ton of those videos on YouTube all the time. So if you have that opportunity, but you can even do it locally, and this is what I'm going to be doing here in the very near future when I get my Vardo camper wagon done. Then I'm going to take you up where I go camping here in local areas around lakes and do fishing and stuff like that. And I'm going to do videos of that, basically vacation videos, I would call them, or camping videos. And it will also include off-grid systems that I'm going to be using, my little wood stove, and how to cook with it and how to use solar power and things like that. So there's an opportunity there. And don't steal my niche. That's my niche, folks. Okay, but I'm going to be doing that because I'm kind of outgrowing the need to work on my own homestead anymore. And I've talked about cabins, and I will still be designing cabins, but I want to be doing something that's a little bit more creative. And so I'm going to be doing these camping log videos. And so I hope that there's a audience out there and that you will watch them when I put them on YouTube. So there's another opportunity. All you have to do is find a niche, whatever it is. Maybe you're going to go visit all the different educational places, all the different, what would you call them? Different parks in your area. And you're going to describe and explain how the park came to being and give the history on that park, or memorials. A lot of memorials in your areas you can go and visit and give the history on it and talk about it. People find that very interesting. Remember that not everybody who moves to a state has been there their whole life. They may not have been grew up there, and so they may not know all this stuff. And so you're introducing them to their state that they just moved to. All good examples of ways that you can use videos to get a stream of income going and also educate people, help people, and build up a following. And now we're down to the last ones, which I'll talk about. These are, you have to have some source of people in order to use these types of businesses and build up a name, but they're good businesses. Pet walking and sitting. A lot of people, especially older people, may not be able to take their dogs out for a walk and stuff like that, or people that are just really busy and don't have time. Pet walking, especially in the cities, I know it's really popular. I don't know about rural areas, but you can check into it. There may be a need for people to go and take care of pets. For people, especially elderly people or people that are really busy, in which you take their animal out to, maybe there's a dog park in your area. We don't have a dog park, but take them around for a nice walk and give them a pet and a good boy and maybe even feed them. I don't know. Those are some things you can do. And pet sitting, if you know people, if you're very responsible and you have a good name and people trust you, then they will leave their pets with you. And it's basically, you're not really kenneling them, because the kenneling is a little bit different system and sometimes requires licensure. But just taking in one or two people's pets to keep them while they're on vacation, or if they're in the hospital or sick or something like that, taking care of them, feeding them, taking them for walks, making sure that they're well cared for. There's a demand for that, so you may look into that. Now, some of these other businesses are not, you don't really own them yourself, but you are a private contractor. And so I just question whether you want to get into something like that, but you can look into Uber drivers and possibly work as an Uber driver, or some of the other Dash, where they go and get groceries, or they get restaurant food and they take it to other people. Those are businesses that basically you're a contractor for another business. So you still have rules and you still have someone watching over your shoulder, and you can still be fired, I think, from those businesses. So, but a lot of people do that. It's a good side income where you can kind of set your own hours and you use your own vehicles, and, just other businesses you can look in. Personal shoppers. Here again, if you live in an area that has people that are very busy, or if you have a lot of senior citizens or homebound people, that may need a personal shopper, someone where you go and get their grocery list and you go do their shopping for them, you bring back the groceries to them. There's an opportunity there. You may be a clothes shopper. Maybe you got a really good eye for fashion or something like that, where you can possibly get into a business like that. Assisting the elderly, and this is one I find really important, because we got, as our population is growing, it's also getting a lot older, including me. I'm an old guy now. Who figured that would happen? So, you know, everybody's getting older, and as you get older, you find that there's some things that you can't do anymore. Even around my homestead, I've hired some teenagers in my area before to come and help me with things like I was removing a bunch of trees, and I needed them to help me haul the trees off to a pile and get rid of them. And so I hired them for the day for that. And I've hired teenagers to help me tear down a shed one time, so that because I didn't want to get up on a ladder again, I got them up on top to throw the materials off down so I could get, as I tore the shed down. So I have used and hired people to do that sort of work. So that's something that you can consider doing there, so that you can set up a business as a personal, what do we call it, assisting the elderly. Especially elderly people need a lot of help around the yards and things like that, and just handyman work, that sort of stuff. But there may be other opportunities. Maybe you're a nurse, and you can consider setting up a personal assistant nurse program for people that are homebound. And look at all the people that are homebound right now. So, you know, hopefully that doesn't last very long. Okay, folks, I've given you over 50 businesses that you can consider that all can be run off-grid. Okay? Most of them don't require a lot of special equipment. Some of them is equipment that you would use on your homestead anyway. And so they're not a lot of expense to get into. You can get into them relatively inexpensively. Here again, I would just caution you, check your state laws to see if you require any licensure, and you know, make sure you're doing it legally. And remember that your name is your responsibility is what you're really selling when you're out there advertising your business. And word of mouth is how I grew my business almost completely. I would do a job, and I would ask the people, now, if you enjoyed this and you like this service, would you please tell your friends and family? And they did, and I would get one person's job, do a job for one person, and next thing I know, I'd have 6 to 10 of their family members all calling me to come do their houses, because word of mouth travels, especially in small rural areas. The other way you can keep your advertising down, I used to make simple flyers. You can get print up a flyer with just 4 of them on one sheet, and then take it to the library and copy it off. And for a few bucks, you can get hundreds of these little 4x4 flyers that you just cut out. And I used a pair of scissors and would cut those out. And then I would go put them on people's windshields at the store. Now, I didn't do it so I was annoying. I didn't do it all the time, every day or something like that. Once a month, maybe I put out some flyers. And most of the businesses didn't mind I was doing that. Some businesses do. Walmart gets pissed off if you go and do that. But most businesses don't care. And in fact, I also picked up some of the businesses where I would put out my flyers for the grocery stores. The grocery stores hired me to do their pest control. So, you know, they didn't mind at all that I was doing that and advertising it. And rural areas are a little bit more lenient that way. They're not so worried about some guy who's running a side business doing a little bit of advertising, as long as you're not overdoing it. So that's one way. You can also put up flyers on your local community boards. And if you've got an internet website, make sure you include that, because everybody goes online nowadays. And if there's local business or local newspaper, you might want to put out an advertisement in that, a local radio station. I think when I first started, I put out just a few advertisements on radio in exchange for doing pest control for the guy that worked at the radio company. And I also did the newspaper a couple of times. I didn't do a lot of advertising because advertising is expensive. That eats into your overhead. But you want to do some advertising. You got to get your word of mouth out there. You got to let people know that your business is available. And then keep your reputation stellar, okay? That's number one. Do a really good job on whatever you're going to do. Give them everything that's worth it for the value of of what you're charging for that, and you will grow your business just through word of mouth. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something from it. You can always go online and research more of these businesses to get a lot more information. I give you a broad overview, some ideas. I will also list the jobs, the businesses that you can start in the links in the YouTube video if you want to go look up a specific one and get more information on it. And as always, please come by my website, simplesolarhomesteading.com. And that's where you can see where I run my business and where I sell my book and my ebooks and my designs and cabin plans. And if subscribe to my YouTube channel and like my videos. And please turn off that stupid ad blocker. And that way I make a little bit of revenue from the ads for making these videos for you. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed this. Have a great day.